So now, remember I said, when we did all that algebra review, I said, fairly soon, in the next, few lessons, we'll be doing some of that math, and we're going to do that today. All right, we're going to do a little bit of algebra. We're going to have to know how to add and subtract with negative numbers. The stuff that I took the time to go over the first 3 weeks of algebra review, it's going to hit us right now. Okay, so hopefully that'll be good for you, because you're like, okay, yeah, now I know how to do that stuff. I'm good. All right, but we got a couple things to talk about before we get to that. Not too much, but a little bit. All right, you should be taking notes. If your notebook was in your locker, you don't have it, just get a piece of paper from somebody. At least write something down, okay? You should not just be sitting there and not writing anything. All right, let me put some numbers in here. So what is this thing called that I'm drawing right here? This is not just a line, but because I got what on them? I got numbers, so it's called a what? It's a number line, right? All right, so this is a number line. A lot of people think we always start at 0, put 0 in the middle all the time. When you first learned a number line, yeah, teachers always did that. I do it all the time. I'm doing it right now. All right, but 0 doesn't always have to be in the middle, but in this case, it is. In fact, any number really could be in the middle because it's a line. It keeps on going forever. So if you took forever this way, forever that way, where's the middle? It could be anywhere, couldn't it? Does it have to be at 0? Nope. It could be anywhere because it's just as far to one side as it is to the other side. All right, anyway, we're not going to talk about that. Let's do this. Let's put a point here at -2, and we'll name it. Call it point A. Let's put a point. I'll tell you what. The book uses 0, and I did that in the last class. I'm going to pick another point. So this looks a little different than what you'll see in the book or what was in my notes, but there's a reason for that. All right. Everybody got that? Everybody knows what a number line is, right? I'm going to give you a word that we're going to use the rest of the year. And if I told you to name this point right here, see the point where my little pen thing, right, cursor is sitting, what is the name of that point? Point what? Point A. That's it. It's at point A. That's what you would call it, okay? You would call that point A. What's that -2 doing, though? Okay, that -2 shows you where on the number line the measurement of it, okay, where it is on the number line, all right? If I just said point A could be anywhere. But if I said -2, you know exactly where that is on a number line, right? You start at 0, you go 2 to the left, and that's where it's located. So we call this, we have a special word for it. We're going to be using this a lot. We call it the coordinate. Coordinate. I guess I should have looked up the word ordinate, but I think ordinate has something to do with numbers, and the co means with. Okay, so it's the point that's associated with a number. I think that's basically what it means, coordinate. But when we say it, we don't say coordinate. We just say, what would you say it? Coordinate, right? Okay, you just kind of blur it together. All right, so just say coordinate. All right, so that's the coordinate point A. So what if I asked you, what if it was a quiz or a test, and I said, what is the coordinate of point B? What would you say? It's 1. You would just say 1. Okay, where is it on the number line? It's at the number 1. What is the coordinate of point C? 3. Easy, right? +3, that's fine. Or just 3. Everybody got it? Okay. What if I said, what's the coordinate of point D? You don't know where the D is, right? So you can't say where the coordinate is. So you wouldn't be able to answer that. That was a trick question. All right? But these are coordinates. That's very important. What we're going to do, the title of this lesson, I didn't talk about this, but the title of the lesson is called Segment and Angle what? Measure. We're going to measure things. We're not actually going to take a ruler or a tape measure or anything and actually measure stuff, but they're going to give you the values where these points are located. We're going to find out how long, okay, is that line segment for right now. We're going to do line segments, and then tomorrow we'll do the measurements of angles. Just to see where you guys are, if I was to measure an angle, what are my units, I guess you could say? How would I measure an angle? I measure them in what? Not centimeters, not an angle. How do I measure an angle? So I took an angle and I took a protractor. You know what a protractor is? It's kind of in degrees. Very good. It's in degrees. Okay, so we measure an angle in degrees. What do we measure segments in? If I had a tape measure or something like that, or a ruler, What could I? There's not just one answer. There's a bunch of answers. Inches, centimeters, feet, meters, miles, yards, right? All that kind of stuff, right? So that's what we're doing. Right now, we don't know if this is in inches. We don't know if it's in meters. So we just give a number, all right? But here's what we're going to do. We're going to measure from point to point. And you can only measure line segments, okay? That's why it's called segment. You can't measure a line. Why can you not measure a line? Keeps on going forever, and there's no way you can keep measuring forever and ever. So you can't measure a line. Can you measure a ray? No, because it's got a starting point or an end point, right? So it does have a place where you can start, but you can't measure the whole ray because the whole ray keeps on going in one direction. All right, but you can measure a line segment. And here's what we're going to do. Write this down. I'm going to try to find the length of line segment AB. Before we actually do that, and you could probably do it, if I'm going to go from A to B, let's just do it right now since we're thinking about it. If I go from A to B, how far is that? Or from B to A. I could go from B to A. It doesn't make any difference. Is it any difference of a length to go from A to B or B to A? No. So I could start here and I could do what? Just start counting, right? Yep. Go to this one. How far did I just go? 1. Now how far? 2. Then how far? 3. So what is the length of line segment AB? It's 3. Good. All right. But we have a special way, and it's really not that hard. It's actually pretty easy. We have a special way to show the length of something. So instead of writing out, watch. All this stuff right here, it's way too much to write. Okay, length of. Here's what they're going to do. They're just going to put find, and they're just going to put AB next to itself without the line segment over top of it. What does that mean? What does it mean, just AB with nothing over top of it? It means the what? The length of that line segment from A to B. Everybody hear me on that? A lot of people forget this and they get confused. And like weeks later, they'll say, well, what does that mean, just AB by itself like that? I'm like, and what do I usually do? I'm like, I taught that stuff to you weeks ago. All right, that kind of, probably not the best response, but that's probably my response, all right? And but what does it mean? It means the length of the line segment AB. So if it just says find AB, and that's what they're going to do, they're just going to give you problems. It says find AB, and that's it. They're not going to say the word length. But what does this mean? This means the length of line segment AB. I can't stress that enough because I know people in the, not too long from now, you guys are going to say, well, I don't know what just AB means. Well, it means the length of AB. So we could just count. So what is the length of AB? We already counted. How far was it? 1, 2, 3. So we could do that. And if that was on a quiz or a test, that's perfectly fine. If it's on your homework, it's perfectly fine just to count from A to B. All right? Here's another way to do it. And this is the way that I would prefer you to do it. So again, the question says find AB. We'll do the same thing. Now we know what the answer is. We know the answer is 3. But here's more of a mathematical way to do it. Because the number line is not always going to be so easy with just little numbers from -3 to 3. Okay, it could be from like -1,000 and something to +3,000 and something. Are you going to sit and draw a number line and mark all that from -1,000 to +3,000 and then count up all the dashes? No, that'd be ridiculous. So you got to have a better way. So what is the better way? Well, I'm glad you asked because I'm going to show you. Now, I'm going to throw something in here that might freak you out a little bit. All right, but don't let it worry you because it's really not that big of a deal. If you were to measure something, that's not a 1, just don't write anything just yet. If you were to measure something with a tape measure, would you ever measure something, that looks about -3 inches? Would you ever say that? Or is that, how far is it to your house? Well, it's about -3.5 miles. Would you ever say that? No, you would just say what? 3.5 miles or 3 inches. A positive number. Would you agree? Yeah. So when we measure something, our answer is always going to be a positive number. I'm never going to say the length of something is -3. You got it? So what ensures us that our answer is always going to be positive? It's something that I don't know if we talked about it in here. I know you've talked about it in Algebra 1. What makes sure that a number is always positive? It's not addition. because you could add negative numbers and get a negative. Okay, what have you ever seen this? Since I'm using -3 all the time, what's that mean? Absolute value. Very good. This is the absolute value. Have you heard of absolute value before? Yes. You might have not remembered it, but you've heard of that, haven't you? What does absolute value always do to a number? Always makes it positive. Okay? It doesn't necessarily change the sign of it. I said not necessarily. Here it did, didn't it? It took it from a negative to positive. But what if I said, what is the absolute value of +3? What is that? It's still +3. Because what does absolute value always do? It always makes it what? Positive. Okay? Everybody with me on that? It's not that hard. A lot of students get confused on absolute value. It's really not that hard. So what I'm going to do is this. How far, or how do I find the distance from A to B? Well, the way that we do it, I'll make it super easy. What if I wanted to go from B to C? I could just count, right? 1, 2. Or what could I do to the number 3 and the number 1 to get a 2 out of that? I could subtract, couldn't I? You see that? So to find the distance between one thing and the other, say you're going down the road, right? And so you're in your car. Here's your car. I'm the world's worst artist, but that's your car. Kind of looks like a truck or a van or something. I don't know what that is. All right, but there's your car. That's the wheels. You get it? Okay. I thought you would laugh more, but that's okay. But that's my car. So let's say I'm going down the road, and here's the big M. What's that? McDonald's. You want to go to McDonald's, right? And you're at the mile marker. I'll make it easy, 50. And you see a sign. It says, turn here to go to McDonald's. Turn at exit 20. So you're at mile marker 50. You know what I'm talking about, right? Those little green signs on the side of the road. Okay, you're at mile marker 50, and it says McDonald's is at mile marker 20. How many miles is it to get to McDonald's? 30. What math did you do? You subtracted. It makes sense, doesn't it, to do that? You've probably done that without even thinking. All right? That's how you find the distance between one point and the other. Okay? And you wouldn't say -30, would you? You would just say 30 miles. That's it. Same thing here. Let's go from A to B. You could do it one of two ways. You could go -2 minus 1. All right? So you take those two numbers right here, and you just subtract them. But if I put them in absolute value, I'm always going to come up with a positive answer. But you do what's inside the absolute value first. Let's do that. What's -2 minus 1? Well, add the opposite, right? We did that earlier in the year. So what is that? That's -3 in the absolute value. But what's the absolute value of -3? It's +3 because we're finding the length of, the distance, okay? The length of something is always positive. Or, right, you could do it another way. Instead of going -2 minus 1, what's another way you could have subtracted? 1 what? Minus -2. Good. Right? Don't go 1 minus 2 because this is not a 2. What is it? It's a -2. So I go from 1 to -2. So I go 1 minus -2. Well, what's 1 minus -2? Adds the opposite. 1 plus 2 is +3. Absolute value. What does the absolute value always do? It always keeps it positive, okay? It only changes it when your number inside of it is negative, all right? But if it's positive, it keeps it positive. You with me on that? What's the easiest way to do this? In this one right here, it's probably just count, right? 1, 2, 3. All right, that's easy. But it's not always going to be that easy because they might give you a number line. I'm just making this up. It's not in the book. Yeah, Owen?
So you always use absolute values?
Yeah, you do. Technically, you do. All right? The only thing the absolute value does is just make sure that your answer is positive. Okay? If you didn't want to put the absolute value symbols in there, you don't really have to. But if you come out with a negative distance, you have to understand that your answer is always going to be positive. So if you came out with -3, don't write -3 as your length. Just write what? +3, right? 3. Everybody with me on that? Okay, here's the reason why I showed you how to subtract. I'm just making these numbers up off the top of my head. I'll keep it easy. Let's use that 20 and 50 thing, all right? So let's say you're at the 50, it's a number line, so let's go in order. So what if you said this is 20 and this is 50? Do I want to sit here and go 21, 22, 23, 24, and then count all the way to 50. That'd take forever. It'd be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Okay, so I'm not going to do that, but I got a better way to do it. So if I had a point here, and we'll call it M, and I got a point here, and we call it N, and I ask you to find, here's the question on the quiz, find MN. And that's all I say right there. Find MN. What would you do? You would subtract. Doesn't matter what order you subtract them in. Nope, doesn't matter as long as, well, now it's a positive 20, positive 50. Okay, so this is positive 20, positive 50. How do I find it? I just go 50 minus 20. What is that? It's the absolute value of 30. But really, did I even need the absolute value? No, because I just know I'm going to write 30 for my answer. You okay with that? What if I started at negative 20? Then how do I find MN? Absolute value of what? 50. Is it 50 minus 20 again? That's it. Good. 50 minus negative 20. Okay? So if this is at negative 20 and this is at 50, what's the length? How far is it from M to N? That's what it's asking you. So what do? You subtract. What's minus a negative? Positive. 50 plus 20 is 70. That's an absolute value, which really doesn't change it. It's just 70. See the difference? Now that would be ridiculous to sit here and put all those little dashes and count. Agreed? If you had something really short and easy, sure, you could count, but it still works with the subtraction. And that's what I would do. I would subtract. Make sense? Yeah. 45. Okay. I got time. That's where we ended up in the last class, but you guys are going to go a little bit further than they did, but I'll do this with them tomorrow. What if I had this? Everybody watch here. With my computer program, it makes it really nice. Yeah. Give me a pass. Watch, I'm going to copy and paste that little line segment right there, okay? So I hit copy. How do you copy when you have a program like this? Control what? C. C for copy. What's paste? It's V. V as in Victor. Why is it V? That's weird. Why would they make it V? Do you know where C and V are on the keyboard? Do you have it memorized? They're where? They're right next to each other. Okay, the C and the V are right next to each other. It's not Control P for paste. Why not? Because on a computer, if you hit Control P, what is it most likely doing? It's going to print. That's right. Anybody used a computer? Seems like computers aren't used anymore. We had before I started teaching, there was no computers. Nobody knew anything about computers because nobody had them. All right. Then computers came around. Everybody used computers. Nobody had cell phones and stuff because they weren't around. So everybody knew about Control C, Control V, and all that stuff. Control P for print. But now, with all the tablets and the phones, now nobody uses a computer anymore. So I've lived through that whole entire stage. It's kind of crazy. And I shouldn't say nobody, but it doesn't seem like people use computers near enough or near as much as they used to. But anyway, Control C, Control V. So this is exactly like this. I could even, if I wanted to, watch, I'm just going to tilt it. Did I change like the length of it? No, I just changed the angle of it, didn't I? So what's the length of this one compared to the length of this one? They're the same, exactly the same. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put endpoints at both of these and endpoints at both of these. All this just to give you one word basically, or one statement. We'll call this AB. We'll call this CD. And they are equal to each other. Okay, and here's how we show that. I think we might have shown this earlier. I can't remember if we did or not, but I'm going to show it to you now. Here's a little way on the picture that you can show that they're exactly the same length. If you put a little, they call this a tick mark. Put a little mark right there. It doesn't have to be dead in the middle, but usually they put it in the middle. Okay, and then one tick mark there. If this has one tick mark and this has one tick mark, what does that tell you about the length of those segments? That they're the same, exactly. All right. So if this is in the book and they gave you this, what could you say about the length of AB and the length of CD? That they're the same, that they're equal to each other, right? The lengths are equal. But here's something that they do when they talk about the line segments. if they have the same lengths, we say that these line segments are not equal. I think this is the first time we've said that. What I'm going to say in a second in this class. We say that they are congruent to each other. Have you ever heard that word, congruent? So these are, we're going to use that word a lot this year. Okay, these are called congruent segments. How do you know that they're congruent? Did we just guess? Because the what marks? The tick marks. Okay, so this little thing, I think it's TICK. All right, so it's a tick mark is what they call it. All right. What if you had another line segment like this one? I'm going to copy and paste that. Oops. Come on, grab it. There we go. And let's just turn it a little bit if I can. Come on. There we go. All right. What do you think is true about those two? I copied and pasted. What do you think is true about those two? So what if I put one tick mark right there? What should be true about all three of those? They're all the same. But is this the same as this? Obviously, it's a lot bigger. So should this have one tick mark? No. Because if they have all one tick mark, it means they're all the same. This obviously is not the same. So what I'm going to do to show the difference? Put two tick marks. So if I put two here, how many am I going to put here if they're congruent? I'm going to put two right there. So the ones with two tick marks are congruent to each other, and the ones with what? One tick mark are congruent to each other. So you know which ones are equal. Everybody got it?
Sure.
All right, Terrell, we're not done. We got 5 minutes left. Okay? Here's a symbol for congruent. This is really important. Watch. If I wanted to talk about these segments being congruent to each other, here's what I do. I say that line segment AB is congruent to what? Line segment CD, right? Here's a symbol for congruent. They're kind of equal to each other, aren't they? But we don't say they're equal because they're really not the same exact line segment. Look, this line segment's over here and it's slanted this way. This line segment's over here. They're two different line segments, would you agree? But they have the same length, all right? So we say they're congruent. So we don't say equal. This is what we do. We put an equal sign and then a little squiggle on top of it. That little symbol means congruent. We're going to be using that all year long, okay? And you're going to be seeing it all year long. So these two line segments right here are congruent to each other. Everybody with me? So we don't say they're equal. We say they're what? Congruent. Okay, good. Let's see what else we got. Let's do an example. We got a couple minutes. We're not getting much further than we did in the other class, but that's okay. Might do a little bit more in here. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's do this. Remember how we did the algebra stuff? And I said you're going to use it? Well, we've used how to add and subtract negative and positive numbers today. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of algebra with x in there, okay? Don't write this first thing down. You can draw the picture right here, but don't write what I'm going to do right here. What if the length of AB was 3? If they put a 3 right there, what does that mean? Does that mean the whole thing is 3? No, from where to where? From A to B is 3. And what if I'm just making this up. What if they said from B to C is 5? If I asked you to find AC, again, what does that mean when it's just AC with no line over top of it? The length of, or the measure of, or the length of AC. How far is it from A to C? What would you do? Yeah, you add them up, exactly. So the math would be what? 3 plus 5 equals what? 8, and that would be your answer. Everybody with me on that? Okay, that was super, super easy. Now we're going to take it up a notch. All right, since we learned a little bit of algebra, we're going to apply it right here. So watch what we're going to do. We're going to put a 6x minus 1. Like, yo, Mr. Hamrick, what are you doing to me? Putting x's in here. And I tell you, it doesn't say to find AC. They actually give you some information. They tell you that AC is equal to 75. All right? So here's all the information that they tell you. Oops, come on, grab this. There it goes. All right? So this is what they tell you. A lot of times they might use the word given. You'll see that from time to time. It's given that AC is equal to 75. What you want to do is you want to find AB, you want to find BC, and you already know AC. So that's what they're going to ask you to do. They're going to ask you to find AB, and they're going to ask you to find BC. Where in the world do we start? Bell's going to ring, but let's think. Come on, don't pack up just yet. Wait till the bell. What do I do with this 6x minus 1 and this 5x plus 10? I add them up. Okay, so 6x minus 1 plus what? 5x plus 10. But what do they add up to be? They add up to be 75. Very good. See, this whole thing is 75. All right, here's a little thing for you to do today. Go through this, do the math, solve for x, okay? Find what x is, plug it back in, and then you got the lengths for both of those things, okay? So that's what I want you to do tonight. And also your homework is 1 to 14, okay? 1 to 14 is your homework tonight. It's section 1.5. It's on the lesson plan. I gave you the lesson plan with the... So it's 1.5a, numbers 1 to 14. I gave you the lesson plan already, didn't I? Yep. Thank you. All righty.